She is a change coach, facilitator and speaker, and she works through her business, The Happy Path. Please welcome to the stage Diane McCabe.
You, your family, your work. Which one of these three would you like to break? These were the words delivered to me by my doctor in 2016. I had gone to my doctor very, very reluctantly. I'd been pressurized by a few of my friends that I needed some emergency intervention. I went to my doctor and I was in complete denial. I had suffered with anxiety and depression since I was a teenager, so I was very used to the ups and downs that go with having a mental health condition. But this was something very, very different. My mood had really changed. I had come into what I had described as a pendulum of emotions. I would go into work every day and I would have a mask on, pretending that everything in my life was okay, that I had everything together. And working in a corporate job where I was responsible for a large change program across a global food company, I had to mobilize people and get them all through this complex change program. So I had to look like I had my act together. And I did that really well, until I would come home in the evening. And I would come home to my family. And at the time, my daughter was 6 years old. And I would literally go from coming in the door and having nothing left to give, because I had given everything that I had back in the office. Everything that I had was left at work with the people that I was caring for and in charge of. And this pendulum of emotions that I had went from, as a mum, to being erratic and unleashing on my poor daughter and my, God love him, my husband, that every day I would come home and I had nothing left to give to them. The guilt would absolutely consume me, so then I would stop talking and I would retreat into myself. I would be on social media, I would be on my laptop, I would be anywhere I couldn't talk to people because I was hurting the people around me. And then maybe the 20th mom for that day, and I would straight away back into that I was unleashing again. Then I'd get up in the morning, put on my makeup, go back to work, and present myself to the world that I was okay. Everything was fine, I was in charge, I was in control. But on this particular day, in my doctor's, I was in denial. She was trying to get me to take time off work on a mental health plan. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I've got this big project, I've got people relying on me. I absolutely cannot go on mental health leave, no. Now, I was the change manager, and I was resisting change, which I can look back at now and laugh at, ironically. I was responsible for taking a global organization through change, yet I was the one who was in denial. She kept circling these three things, saying, you, your family, your work. You need to make a decision which one is going to break. Well, it can't be my family. Of course it can't be my family. I can't break me because obviously I have to look after my family. So it has to be work. And even though I fought again, she took out another piece of paper, and this piece of paper was showing that I had failing liver function. So anxiety, depression, panic attacks, burnout, and failing liver function, I had to make a change. Now, I don't know about you, but listening to a lot of the amazing stories in the room today, it seems to me that a lot of people in their life come to a point where you know you've got to change. Sometimes the change comes from within and it tells us, yes, we need to move forward, and it's driven by ourselves. Other time, things sneak up on us quietly, like my burnout did, and then one day hit me over the head until I was forced to make a change. So I proceeded to take the next 3 months off work on mental health leave. That day, I got a mental health plan, a referral to a psychologist. I had to ring my husband, I had to ring my manager at work, and I made the phone call to my husband because I knew that if I allowed myself to drive home in the car, I would make up some excuse, would probably not tell him what happened, and would be back in work the following day. So I needed to make those phone calls there and then from the car park. So over the next 3 months, and it was much longer than 3 months that it took to recover, but I started to do that slow rebuilding of myself to start putting those pieces back together. Now, some of you may think that this doesn't relate to you, that we all have mental health, but not everyone has a mental illness, and not everybody finds themselves in a situation where they're burnt out. But 1 in 5 people in Australia, according to WorkSafe Australia, has said that they have taken time off work due to feeling mentally unwell in the previous year to when the survey was taken. And those stats are on the increase. And people who are taking time off work due to mental health conditions are finding that it's taking longer durations off work than it would be for other issues at work or other work safety results, that it's taking them longer to recover, and the cost to the organisation is much more. So I was one person in that organisation. And if we're hearing that 1 in 5 are taking time off work, then in any given organisation, 20% that we know about are taking time off, and that it's saying that it's mental health related. There are many other people who will give it a physical explanation or give another reason for it. But there is no doubt about it that we're increasing with the amount of stress, pressure, and mental health conditions in our workplace. Now, it's interesting for me because I am an organizational change specialist. This is what I've done for 15 years now. And during my recovery, my brain started ticking in to say, okay, I normally come off these big projects and I do what's called a post-implementation review. I look back at all the lessons learned and say, how could we have done things differently? So as I started to recover and thought back about the organization I worked in, I very much wanted to say, well, I'm seeing lots of other people like me who are struggling in the workplace. What can I learn through my experience with organizational change that I can help them be better and more effective in the workplace? And given that the work that I do puts pressure on people, I'm there as a change manager to try and help people go through change in an easier way. But the reality is, when you've got big projects going on at work, we no longer get the time to recover from those. There's another one, and another one, and another one. And there's a big target that we need to make. And there's that constant pressure in the workplace for us today. So the question I asked myself was, how can I, being an organizational change specialist, pull that together along with my mental health lived experience and come up with something that helps people go through change in a sustainable way, where they're not sacrificing their mental health in the process. And one of the things that I really, really focused on, that I was very interested in, was how people go through stress in their life. Because we all work under stress at different points in time. And this Yerkes-Dodson curve shows us that there's some really good stress. There's times when you feel like you are firing on all cylinders, that you think, yeah, I've got this deadline and I'm really good, I'm going to make it. But then as we tip over the curve, we start to come down the other side into the red zone, into that stress zone. And this now has become a mental image for me, thinking, where am I on this stress curve? Am I in optimum, or am I starting to tip over? And a lot of my program is around trying to pull people back, that we start to identify ourselves of where we are on this spectrum. And my learnings I've bundled up under my business, The Happy Path, and this is not just what I do in my work, this is how I live my life, and it's being fit for change. Because as we've heard from other speakers today, there is nothing more constant than change. But what is different is the pace, the complexity, the nature that we just have to keep up, and the pressures we put on ourselves. So I have come up with my own model, and again, this is how I live my life. So today, there is no sales pitch. This is not a sales thing. This is me imparting my hard-won lessons in my own life to you as fellow women and men, as people who are working under stressful conditions. The first one is a vision. Who are you? Not just who are you today, but who is the aspirational you? Who is that person you desire to be, that you know is inside of you? I didn't know who my aspirational self was. I came from a background of high unemployment in a rural Ireland. So for me, it was like, get a good job, keep a good job. Never, ever let anything come in the way of not having a good job. So I never identified myself as what is my vision for my life. Now I come from a place of vision, mission, and values, very much taking personal responsibility for who I am and how I show up in this world. The second part on the compass, the Fit for Change compass, is making a decision. Once you figure out who you are and how you want to contribute in this world, decide that your thoughts, your words, and your actions are going to align with that. That you are absolutely going to wake up every day and try your absolute best to be that aspirational you. And yes, we all fall off the horse, and because I've got mental illness, that happens more often than not. But every day, every moment of every day, I try to do that. That I make a decision, and my decisions are based on where I want to go, which is my vision. Activation is really where a lot of my learnings are from. So activation is about not just taking action, because you can have all the vision in the world, but if you don't take action, it doesn't come to life. But activation is actually about the fuel that actually propels you forward in your action. And with that fuel, for me, having positive inputs in my life, how am I topping myself up? Azriel mentioned meditation. It's one of my major fuels that I do. I take time out for walking, for meditation, for making sure that I fuel my tank. I no longer watch the news. I listen to positive podcasts. I absolutely invest in myself and my intellectual well-being. But this, in terms of activation, is also making sure, do you have a plan? How do you know that you're on track? Who are your cheer squad? Who are the people who are in your proximity that are helping you along your path? And lastly, because again, another speaker mentioned that the best laid plans will always come to waste. Course correction. And I talk about my happy path, which is my business, which is my life. But I need to course correct. There is always change. Shortly after I came back after my mental health leave, I got made redundant. So I needed to course correct again. And this, when I unpacked, how did I get through all of that? How did I figure out that I needed to keep changing and evolving? But because I was so much more clearer on my vision, I'd made a decision about who I am and what I wanted to be and how I would show up in the world. I was now fueling myself with positive inputs and taking action to move forward. It was at snail's pace, but I was moving forward. But at least course correction, when change comes from the outside, so it's not internally driven, but the reality is all change comes from within. And with course correction, saying to yourself, how do I feel about this? How does this fit into my vision? You take personal responsibility for how you show up in any situation, making change easier. So I ask you all today if there's an element there that you can work on for yourself to dig into that. Be fit for change. And there's a Sun Tzu quote, which is, plan for what is difficult when it is easy. Plan now for the burnout, for the mental health breakdown, for the major changes that may occur in your life or in a friend or family member's life. Thank you.